So much equipment, Patty thought, closing the door behind her. Digital sensors on a series of monitors mounted behind her husband's bed displayed a multitude of numbers and graphs, signaling every slight change in Brian's blood pressure, oxygen levels, and respiratory rate. The movement of the electrocardiogram display up and down reassuringly indicated that his heartbeat was steady. Patty saw the clutter of monitors as a reflection of the enormous, hopeless efforts that were being made to prevent the inevitable. Her husband was in the last stages of a rapidly progressing incurable disease, and no amount of medical technology could keep him alive for long. She was relieved to find that he was awake and relatively awake, although a little weak from the medications that barely contained his pain. There was a chair next to his hospital bed, and she pulled it closer and settled herself comfortably, reaching out to take his hand. The lighting was harsh, and the room was too cold, she thought. As in all hospitals, it smelled of disinfectants. "How are you feeling, honey?" "What is it?" she asked. "Are you comfortable?" The hospital bed was raised to support him up to the waist, and he forced a half-smile as she sat down next to him. Patty looked at the rapidly aging face of the man she had lived with for the last 20 years of her life, and her sympathy and sadness mixed with the resentment she had cherished after learning about her husband's infidelity many years ago. Although more than 5 years have passed since that family storm, the resentment and anger have not disappeared, only partially mitigated by her internal process of forgiveness and personal decisions. She felt some satisfaction that she was able to defend herself and her feelings, although not without consequences for their relationship. "I feel better now, but this morning was terrible until they increased the dose of painkillers," Brian said in a broken and weak voice. "I tried to call you last night, but I couldn't. I left a voice message. Were you with a friend?" "Yes, dear. I spent the night at his house," she replied, smiling softly and patting his hand. "We overslept. I didn't see your message until late this morning, so I decided to talk to you when I get there." They continued the conversation about health, about the past, about relationships. Patty remembered how it all started, how they both once agreed to be faithful to each other. But over time, life has changed. One weekend, she discovered that Brian was cheating on her. This was a turning point. He was sorry, he swore it was a mistake. And even though she was in pain, she decided not to destroy the family. Later, in an effort to restore her own sense of value, Patty also allowed herself to redefine the boundaries of personal freedom while maintaining frankness in communicating with her husband. Their relationship has moved into a new phase where honesty has become the main value, despite difficult feelings. In the end, Brian reluctantly agreed to her demand. She left him no choice. To seal the deal, she took his hand and led him into the bedroom, where they spent the evening together. That night, when they were resting, Patty propped herself up on her elbows and turned to face her husband. "I'm going to make you 2 promises, Brian. First of all, you can never complain about the lack of intimacy. Every time I come home, I want to be with you. And secondly, I'll be honest with you about all aspects of our lives, if you want to know." Brian sighed. He loved his wife and knew there was nothing he could do to stop her. It was his own damn fault. Her contact with Miguel stopped after a few weeks. Eventually, when the interest between them faded, the conversations dried up. Meetings had become formal and boring. One day, while waiting for the car to be washed, she met a young man. He looked at her, and she looked back. She liked his looks and confidence. Later, Christopher appeared in her life. His apartment smelled of incense. Every day before meditation, he lit a sandalwood stick. They drank wine and spent time together, enjoying companionship and hugs. Patty felt that he was a caring man. He was attentive to her feelings and took his time, respecting her boundaries. Although their relationship was pleasant, over time it became clear that they had little in common. He was younger, not too serious, and soon their relationship ended. Then Jordan appeared, followed by Nick, whom she also felt comfortable with. Looking back, Patty could hardly remember how many meetings and new acquaintances she had had in recent years. She estimated there were a lot of them, but she didn't keep count. She tried to be honest with Brian. "I told him about myself as much as he wanted to hear. Sometimes he shared his own memories of fleeting hobbies, but he always remained in the shadows, not sharing her open approach. When Brian started having health problems, she tried to be there for him. He felt worse and worse. The diagnosis turned out to be difficult. The treatment did not help, and the focus shifted to maintaining comfort in the last months of life. Patty to care of him. Since there was no more intimacy between them, she sought support and emotional release in other relationships, although she tried not to leave him alone. Sometimes she returned home and shared her impressions with him so that he would not feel abandoned. One day, Brian asked her an unexpected question. She replied calmly, explaining that she was trying to find a balance between her feelings and circumstances. He wasn't thrilled with what he heard, but he didn't say anything. They stayed together until the very end. On the last day, Brian looked very weak. He wanted to say something, but the words were coming out with difficulty. Patty moved closer to hear, and it seemed that he whispered, "Damn it." She leaned closer, but instead she heard completely different words, words full of reproach. Then everything went quiet. The monitor in the ward began to emit an alarm signal. The nurses hurried into the room, but Patty had already risen from her chair. She lingered for a moment, taking a last look, and then left the room.